Hey, what's up, amigos? It's the Prodigy Maker Show, episode 51, coming to you live. It's Chris Lewitt. I'm not at the Chris Lewitt Tennis Academy. I'm at the Chris Lewitt Family House in Manchester, Vermont. The academy's just down the road, and we're doing a little Friday night lights, as they say in Texas, where I went to a tennis academy in Texas when I was a kid, full-time, John Newcomb Tennis Academy. And we're going to do some Friday night lights, but it's not football, it's tennis, talk about the serve. Happy to share with you guys my serve philosophy. I know that I've had some requests to talk about serve technique. That is a very popular topic and a subject that's very near and dear to my heart because I love teaching the serve, and I have players and coaches, families come from all over the world to work on the serve with me here, whether I'm in New York or here in Vermont. So it's an area of expertise for me. It's a specialty. I've studied the biomechanics of the serve for many years, and I think just from being in the trenches, working with thousands of kids, all levels, from beginner, young kids, 5, 6 years old, to teenager, could be a world-ranked junior, or could be just a kid starting out in the tournament circuit in their section. But just from those years of experience teaching the technique and working on the serve with so many different children, combined with the good study of biomechanics. And also, I have to admit that what gave me the best insight into the serve was my old coach, Gilad Bloom, whom I always try to mention, and I give a lot of respect and thanks. Very grateful to Gilad, because I think he was a genius, and he is a genius with the serve. And the thing about Gilad well, back in the day when I was a player, he was my coach. And I got injured, so I ended up doing some coaching on the side to try to make some extra money. And I spent hours and hours on Gilad's court. And Gilad could fix any serve. He had this magical ability. He could take any player who came in, and after a few months, what I observed was, in his academy in New York, is these kids would be transformed. And I thought, wow, this guy is amazing. Like, he can basically mold this player into any shape he wants. He can mold the technique into any shape he wants. And I wanted to learn how to do that, and that is how I guess I got started on my journey as a technician, as someone who loves to develop and refine technique. Sometimes you have coaches who are experts in tactics, they're tacticians, and you find a lot of those coaches on the tour. I started my journey, I didn't know it was going to end up this way, but I started out back in the day learning from Gilad how to be a world-class technician, how to work on the nuts and bolts, the hardware of a young player's game, rather than so much the software. Gilad was not much of a software coach, working as much on the mind or the psychology or the tactics. Not that he couldn't do that, but his specialty and his genius, I think, is and was the technical. And not just the technical in terms of biomechanics, because Gilad isn't the type of guy to sit down and probably read a lot of biomechanical textbooks. That's something I happen to have done that. Like, I've read all the ITF books on biomechanics, and that kind of stuff is a little more scholarly. That's up my alley, but Gilad just had this knack for fixing things. He's like, someone who's really good at mechanical things, like fixing a car or rebuilding an engine. Well, Gilad has this uncanny ability to do that with technique. And so I just had this luck, just sheer luck, that I connected with this guy, this amazing coach. And I when I got hurt and I realized that I might not be able to make it on the pro circuit as a player, I really wanted to become a world-class coach. And so I started my journey in this technical framework that I learned from Gilad. And I think that has been a springboard for my entire career, just out of serendipity, just luck, that just, I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and then getting injured. And what are the chances that you can make I built my whole career on being an expert in technique now. And I think it's interesting how life works. I never would have seen that coming. And probably back in the day, I wouldn't consider myself like a very technical, mechanical person, but I just happened to have this exposure to someone who was like that, who had this brilliant mind for taking apart technique and rebuilding it. And I just was his understudy for many years. So that's how it all started. And then if you combine that with good scholarly study of biomechanics, you can start to develop a real expertise in building and rebuilding serves or whatever, forehand, backhand, whatever it might be. So that's sort of the backstory. I didn't even plan to discuss that, but I just thought it was interesting. It's just an interesting personal anecdote. And for all of you coaches watching, you just never know who you're going to be exposed to, who you're going to learn from. You always try to learn from everyone. Your mentors, I always tell young coaches who study with me, your mentors are everything. Especially in something like coaching, where coaching is, you can learn a lot of things from a book that will help you as a coach, but you can't learn coaching. To be a great coach, it's a talent that you have to develop with people on the court, with mentors. I think that's really important. So I see some friends are already on the program. Guys, I'm really sorry. I wanted to catch up with you guys. It's been a few weeks since the last show, and we did hit episode 50, so I'm super happy about that. But, however, the show it's been tough. It's pandemic here. My kids are still all at home. I have 4 kids at home. Here come all the excuses. Wait a minute. Champions don't make excuses, as my son likes to tell me, as Rick Macy loves to say. But it's just a fact. It's crazy here. I've been working hard. I have players visiting the academy, and all my kids are home. We're trying to do the homeschooling. Got to get through this final year. Wow, what a year it's been. So I'm also in school. I'm taking some classes in kinesiology. I'm studying biomechanics and technique in college right now, part-time. So I'm doing some studies part-time in my favorite area of study for tennis. And it's been wild. And the show is become more of a once every other week type of deal. I'm going to try to do 2 per month, and that way we can at least have regular broadcasts. Broadcasting from the house here. It's a little nuts at home. This is my wife's broadcast room. She does a lot of remote work. She's a lactation consultant. So she works with a lot of moms who are breastfeeding. She's like a baby. She's like a nurse for lactation, for nursing. And this is her room where she does all her remote consults. And I've stolen her room. It's actually not either one of our rooms because it's Baby Ocean's. It's Baby Ocean's bedroom, but we have taken over her room for remote broadcasting. So I hope you don't mind the kitty stuff in the background, but the acoustics are pretty good in here, and the lighting's not bad either. So we have stolen Baby Ocean's room for broadcasting and for our remote teaching. So the serve, let's dig into it a little bit. I see Vanessa said hello. What's up, Vanessa? How are you? Great to see you guys. Say hi to the twins. Can't wait to see them soon this summer. Those are my Las Vegas players there. Vegas, baby. Serve. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty, or this show is going to be like 2 hours long. I could do a 4-hour program on the serve. If you have questions about the serve or technique and you happen to be catching the show live, feel free to jump in and pick my brain. But a few things I wanted to touch on, and I have no pre-planned notes. This is all extemporaneous things on the top of my head. But when you get into technique, when a player comes to you and they need work on their serve, where do you start? As a coach or a parent or as a player, the first thing that pops into my head, like if you did that game that they do on a lot of podcasts where they say, first association, the host throws out a name of something, and then the guest has to say their first thought that comes to mind. My first thought that comes to mind is this kind of thing. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, if you're not watching the video, I'm making a power position or a trophy position where the right arm or the dominant arm is in approximately 90 degrees. You get a nice perpendicular shape with the right arm. The racket extends straight upward, and then the left arm is up high, pointing to the ball. So whatever you want to call that, power position is a good term because biomechanically, at that moment, you are storing all of your energy and getting ready to release it and to accelerate to your maximum. So that power position, for me, is everything, especially for little kids. Also, I like to build the serve from this is up top, but it's not up top like small little things. It's like big shoulder position, back position. It's a large group of muscles creating this framework. And for me, that's, sometimes I call it gross, like that gross positioning, as in a gross motor skill, large muscle groups working. That to me is more important than a lot of little fine motor skills when someone's learning the serve, especially young children. I work with a lot of prodigies. I work with a lot of young kids under 10, little superstars. I have a girl that won Little Mo. I have all sorts of little, I'm like the Pied Piper for little kids. All these little superstars follow me around, coming to New York, coming to Vermont, and that's one of my passions, getting the kids when they're young and building. I'd like to think that I'm very well known for building beautiful technique in young children for their serve. So that's one of the, people come to me all ages. I have few adults working with me right now, and I'm cleaning up their serve because they never got good serve technical training when they were little. But you get those little superstars coming in, and you got to start, for me, with gross motor skills, gross body positioning, with large muscle groups. So what are the largest muscle groups in the body? Start thinking about the legs. So association in my mind, beautiful power position up top, and then down below, for me, the legs, and what you do with the legs, what a child does with the legs is critical. And I think that right there, what I just said in the last few minutes, I think is very, very different, perhaps radically different than the way I see most coaches teaching the serve. Most coaches that I see and in USPTA, PTR, I don't know who comes up with the methods that people are using. I mean, to me, there's a lot of flawed approaches. So, like, I see a lot of little kids being taught grip, what to do with their wrists, like pronation. That's a buzzword you hear a lot. What else? Not really utilize. A lot of kids are told not to use their legs, to keep their legs straight and just focus on the upper arm movement. Now we can get into some of these, different questions, but for me that's not really what I care about with the serve for beginners or young children or whether it's adults coming back to learn the movement better. You gotta have that, and if you're listening to this broadcast, that is the power position. Good positioning in the elbow of the dominant arm, good extension of the left arm, right? Lifting the left arm up. I don't mean I don't mean the anatomical term extension. I just mean the arm is lifted up high. I guess that would be elevation in the anatomical terminology. But whatever you want to call it, it's going to look like this, guys, and there's going to be an angle in the shoulders. And you try to get this. You're going to work a lot on this. And this takes a lot of time because with little kids, what do you get? It's hard to lift that racket up. It's hard to get that framework. It's hard to get that beautiful positioning. A lot of times the racket will drop. You see players do the pizza delivery. You see the wrist collapse here. You have to develop this control of the racket and the racket head to make a beautiful L shape in the dominant arm. And you have to work a lot on the motor control to get the left arm tossing well and the left arm pointing up to the ball. Another thing that I don't spend a lot of time on is, I mentioned the toss. I see some coaches, many coaches, spending an inordinate amount of time trying to get the kid to toss correctly or accurately. Is the toss really important on the serve? Absolutely. Should you spend hours and hours in a lesson with a hula hoop or a racket on the ground trying to toss it into that target? I think it's a big waste of time in the lesson. I give it for homework. If a kid's going to do that, I give it for homework. They can do hours of that on their own time, not in the lesson. You don't pay the coach to do that with the kid. That's my feeling. Will the toss get better when you're working on all these other things? In my experience, yes. You're working on the power position here. You get the left arm coming up straight. There's no flipping, no dipping, no weird things in the wrist. You may mention how to hold the ball. You don't spend hours on this. Come on, this is like a couple minutes. You make adjustment and you give homework. But the focus, I think, is all wrong for many coaches out there who work on the serve. And the result is, it's great for my business. I sound like Nick Bollettieri. Great for my business, baby. Like Nick would say something like that. It's great for my business. Because what happens is when coaches focus too much on the wrong stuff or the stuff that's not really applicable or appropriate at the right age or at the right time, is it takes longer to develop a good serve. It takes more time. So the developmental chart, the developmental graph, the curve, the learning curve is longer, and the player sometimes stagnates, sometimes gets frustrated. So my whole philosophy, my whole modus operandi, my focus has been trying over the years, last 15, 20 years in the trenches, working on technique, is to try to figure out ways to teach a kid world-class technique, modern technique, especially modern, like the kind of technique you see on the tour now, not 20 or 30 years ago, or maybe even predicting what the future will be, and teaching that technique as quickly as possible, number one, so that the kid can become as good as possible in as little amount of time, and also to save my parents and family money. People pay me a lot of money for my lessons. It's wrong to try to draw that out and suck people dry. If you're really good and people pay you more, I've said this in other podcasts and I've written about this, you should be able to develop a kid faster. That's why people pay coaches $200 or $300 per hour as opposed to a local coach making $60 or $80 or $100 for a lesson. If you can't develop a kid faster, then why are you getting paid more? Just because you have a big name or something like, no, you have to get results. So my whole overarching philosophy is, with the serve specifically, is how can we get this kid into a world-class framework? All of the reference points, the positions that you see with the pro level serve, can you get that as quickly and as soon as possible, as young as possible, as quickly as possible, as fast as possible? Obviously, with a little child, they can't quite get every reference point like a full-grown adult. So there has to be some leeway, but I don't think there's that much. A lot of coaches will use that as an excuse for very rough, very rudimentary form in children. And it could be on, this could be for a forehand or a backhand. We're talking about serve, but many coaches will excuse bad form, and they'll just say, well, this kid is young, and over time it's going to get better, and it's okay to leave this and this and this alone. I don't usually take that approach with the serve. The serve is one of those shots that you can really refine it. Why is that? You have control over it. No one is hitting the ball at you. You can practice it by yourself. This is a particular shot in tennis. It is the most complex biomechanical movement in tennis, but it's also the one that you can practice and master. I don't want to say most easily, but it is, you can master this movement because you're in control of it, and the ball is not coming randomly, bouncing different ways. And you can also practice to serve the shot in tennis. You can practice all by yourself on your own. You can do hundreds and hundreds of repetitions, hopefully do them right. But the serve is difficult, but it also, because it's a unique shot in tennis that you have control over and that you can practice on your own, it's also a shot that you see world-class players master. They conquer the difficult, they overcome the difficulty, and they develop an incredible weapon. And that's what a serve should be. And that, if you're wondering what the long-term goal is to get a big shot that is getting free points at a high level, whether it's top national level, top in the world level, ITF, or on the pro tour. You're trying to develop a weapon, or at least the foundation of a weapon in a young child, that when they get older, they have a dominating force that can earn them 15, 20 free points in a match, whether that's a service winner or an ace. It has to be a commanding weapon. Let's talk more about that in a minute, checking a few questions here. Vanessa, I think, has a question here, or maybe just a comment. Lucas has been working really hard on keeping his left hand up longer to really help him get the most he can out of his body. Yeah, the left arm control is a common issue with young children. It's hard. It's hard to coordinate getting a good toss. Tossing is hard. You're using your non-dominant arm. Like I said, guys, this show could be, I'll keep the show a reasonable length, but this could be 4, 5, 6 shows, hour-long length. There's so many different elements. I'll let you guys lead me on any technical questions that you have, and I'll just touch on a few big points that I want to share. But man, I think we did a show a couple of years ago on the serve, and there's just a number of different ways you can come at the serve. It's a complex biomechanical movement. There's many different ways you can slice it and dice it and dissect it. And my main goal is to kind of help you guys answer any questions you have, and also share with you sort of like the cheat sheet, some of the big ticket items for me as a serve developer. And like I said, I believe that I have found a way to teach the serve that develops the technique faster. So a better way than what I've seen. And I've done a lot of traveling and a lot of studying. I've studied with many legendary coaches, and I've never seen a method that works as well. And most of what I've learned goes back to the old Israeli guy himself, Gilad Bloom. So that's why I guess it was appropriate to talk about Gilad at the start, because I think that he is the real serve genius. And all I did was very diligently sit on that guy's court, watch all his lessons, especially his serve lessons, especially his technical lessons, and I stole all of it. I took copious notes, and hey, the greatest coaches steal. Come on. I just basically, I took everything he did and I tried to follow his eye. He had this incredible eye for technique, so I just tried to, in the beginning, I didn't see anything the way he saw it, the different positions of the body parts and what he prioritized. First, I had to figure out what this guy was checking and where his eyes were focusing on. That took a while. That took probably a couple years. And then I had to figure out, okay, so that's how I analyzed the serve. And then how do I now build it or rebuild it? So that's another level. First, you develop your eye. I always tell coaches who are studying with me, you got to develop your eye if you want to be a technician. And what is the eye? It's like your inner dartfish. It's your ability to see things in slow motion, or to see or to catch things, anatomical positions of the body, to see where things are out of place and what's missing. And for many coaches, that is a big struggle. Some coaches rely too much on high-speed video because they don't have a good eye. I think in some ways some coaches lean too much on a high-speed video. So I think it's important, if you want to be a great technical coach, is to develop that eye. So you can always go to the video and to help yourself, but learning how to do it in real time and trying to see as much as you can in real time will develop your technical coaching ability. So what I'm trying to say is you got to see it. You got to see the kid. And you got to figure out a way to build what you want. So you have to have a vision, and then you have to have these drills, different exercises to get what you want, to start molding that kid or the adult. And if you're it's harder as an adult because you have to unlearn all those bad habits. It's a little easier with the young kid who's less well formed. So guys, Vanessa was talking about the left arm. Left arm is tough to get that thing up. Right arm, very tough to coordinate both. Think about it. Think about how the body learns. Think about motorically, motor skill, acquirement. There's a lot to manage with the serve. So complex. You give a little kid a ball, they got to toss it with their non-dominant hand, and then they got to swing their other hand around, load up into a good power position, and then explode. Very, very difficult to do with the arms. Some coaches work a lot on that rhythm. I think that's a pretty good goal with a young kid, to develop the rhythm in the arms. The coordination is really important. I think another mistake that I see from coaches is many times they'll work too much on the rhythm, so that then they won't involve the legs, the lower body. So I mentioned that I want to work the big muscle groups, use gross motoric, try to get the gross motoric learning, rather than, I feel little kids, it's I don't want to say a waste of time. Maybe it is a waste of time in my lesson. Maybe I'll give them some homework with maybe if they have to learn a fine motor skill movement like a pronation or even shoulder rotation. I don't really focus too much on the ending or things, the little details in the wrist, even at the shoulder joint. I like to see these. For me, it's like big building blocks. And the first two building blocks are that power position, and it's the legs, the way the legs are, the stance. So that's the footwork of the serve. And are they powering out of the legs? Are they using the legs? And here I'm going to get maybe into some hot water, are they using the legs to jump? for me, and this is core, fundamental in my system, is all of the players jump. Jump. And I don't think, I see, I don't see anyone teaching that. And if they're teaching that, they got it from one of my videos, because there's, most coaches say, don't jump, stay on the ground. There's a whole philosophy and a method, which I don't disrespect, actually. It's not too bad. I've seen some real world-class guys teach elite juniors just basically not to use their legs. You know, just kind of develop the throwing motion and the arm motion. You know, it's not a bad way to do it. And then kind of what happens is at like 10, 11, 12, those coaches start to like add in some of the details that I'm talking about. But I skip that route. It's a little too slow for me. I don't know why. I don't like it. I like to see the legs. I think little kids can learn how to jump. It's a playground skill. It's a gross motor skill. It's something that is fun. It's something that I love to introduce to young kids. I'll take a kid 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. I don't care about what grip they're using at that age. I get that kid to jump. And it's fun. You know, you can make like a little target on the ground and say, hey, let's jump into that box. And you get that kid to learn how to basically load the legs and explode. And so that is a huge component that I'm looking for with children. And if the player is older, there are many older people who do not use their lower body. They do not drive with the legs. And so it becomes a very common theme in my work with older players, whether they're adults or more advanced, you know, juniors who are teenagers, things like that. But if you can try to visualize what I'm saying in your mind, if you want to take a stab at this, if you haven't worked with me on the court, if you haven't seen it in my videos or, you know, anything like that, is the upper body, this structure here, sometimes I call it the apparatus of the serve. You know, this build, you got to get that, something like that. That's the power position, trophy position, whatever you want to call it. That's where you're storing the energy, and this energy is also being stored down below, because when your arms are here, where should your legs be? When you're in that power position, that trophy position, your legs should be flexed, right? Your knees, tibiofemoral joint should be flexed, and you're getting ready to extend and explode upward. And this is another huge part of my approach, is the timing of when the player is in the power position, that first structure that I mentioned, and when they are loaded in their legs, and are they dropping the racket into, people call it back scratch, whatever you want to call it. Is that racket drop happening at the right time? And so that, in a nutshell, I don't want to say that's everything, but if you bring a kid to me at 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, or maybe they're older and they don't have a world-class serve, and you're looking for some remedial work, 15, 16, or you're an adult and you never learned a great serve, this is it. It's not, this is my point. You don't get too crazy working on pronation. You have coach do 10 lessons on pronation. Give me a break. Or, I don't want to get too controversial. Like, what else people work? I don't know what are these guys working on? The grip. You get a young kid. Yeah, let's spend 10 lessons on the grip. No, let's not do that. That is a waste of time. I can get a lot more from a young kid at that young age. We spend 10 lessons on the big stuff. The big stuff, baby. The legs. Can that kid jump up? Can they get into this beautiful power position? Can they manipulate their arms to develop this structure? This is very hard to coordinate. Can they toss the ball up and coordinate their arms, their left and their right arm, into that beautiful power position? Can they do that? And at the same time, load the legs at the right time. And then you take it one step further. Can they start that acceleration phase of the serve? But this is not acceleration yet. This is just storing. When they're fully stored, can they release that energy, even if it's a young kid, maximally? Can they accelerate with a good racket drop and a good extension up to the ball? But what do most kids do? Right in that area of the serve, they usually drop their racket too early. So the racket collapses down before the legs drive. And actually the legs should it happens about simultaneous, pretty close in timing, but the legs should fire, and that kind of initiates the racket drop. So there's the racket drop should be on a delay. The player needs to load and fire the legs while maintaining this power position, and then the racket is going to drop and catch up. Sometimes I say the legs will trigger the racket drop, and when that racket starts dropping, that's really the beginning of the full build up to maximum acceleration. And I don't want to say that's it. What I just said, I don't know how many minutes we've been talking about it, but what I just said, probably to get it real good, it's going to take a year or two. If you're doing like a once a week private lesson deal, if you're coming to work with me for a month every day, you can probably do it in a month. But if you're taking you come to the academy and train with me every day. But those building blocks that I mentioned, that takes time. That takes time because the serve is biomechanically complex and challenging. And for most people, it's not a natural thing. Occasionally you get a kid who's a really quick learner, great motoric learner, and they get it. They can do it. You don't have to teach them that much. Certainly you shouldn't overteach them. But most people, this is where the coaching comes in. They struggle in one of those areas, and you got to figure out, where is this player struggling? What part of the kinetic chain is breaking? And then you got to figure out a way to rebuild it. And that's what I mentioned about this guy, Gilad Bloom. He had this knack. He had this ability, not just to pinpoint what was wrong, but then he could visualize how he wanted to change it. And then he'd have all these different little technical exercises to get the reformation, the rebuilding process going. And that was his genius. It was not just the eye, but the ability to correct and fix all those things. He's still amazing. He's down in Miami right now. I don't know if he's back in New York yet, but he's in Miami. Amazing. I got a couple questions from Brian here, and man, I could keep going on and on. I might touch on one more topic. I wanted to just mention to you guys, along with those basics that I mentioned, I work a lot on the landing. It's kind of weird, kind of unusual. I don't see a lot of coaches doing that. Now that I produce a lot of videos and courses, and I've written a lot, I published a lot, so I feel like that's changing. But back in the day, like 15, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I didn't see anyone spending time on the landing. That's a weird. I have all my USPTA and PTR certifications, and that really wasn't part of the deal. When you work on the serve, it's kind of like, trophy position, pronation. If you jump, it's a byproduct. You hear that a lot. It's not really something you should teach. It's wrong to teach a jump because it should be kind of a byproduct and that kind of stuff. Curiously enough, I spend a lot of time on the landing and the footwork of the landing. To me, that's something really fun. and engaging for little kids to learn. So part of it's just my teaching of instincts with a child. Kids like to jump. They just enjoy jump. It's not something, you have a little kid and you're going to teach them how to serve. You start with the jump. It's fun. They know how to do it. It's like a frog does in the pond, like they do in the playground. You can teach that. I really firmly believe that. It's big motor skill, gross motor skill. You teach them how to jump. And so just naturally, I guess what happened over the years is I said, all right, you're going to teach them how to jump, but I'm going to teach them how to land. And I get them landing on the left leg. And I work a lot on the kickback. It's like an arabesque movement in ballet. So, that's the other thing that I spend a lot of time on. People think that's crazy. To work on I spend a lot of time on the landing. To me, it's great. I love it. So I get the kids jumping, and then we work on the landing, and you get such a good balance training. You can also work on their footwork post-landing. Really good stuff. You're building a lot of coordination. You're building stability in the legs. You're building power in the legs. I just love that. So if I were going to go over my top 3 or 4 or 5 things, you guys got the deal now. Now you can go out there and try to compete with me. But you still got to spend a few years developing your eye if you're a coach. I know a lot of coaches listening to the show. A lot of coaches don't like to admit that they listen to the show, but they do. But hopefully we have some parents and kids listening too. But, you can go out and try. You're going to have to spend a few years developing your eye. Don't have to go to the dartfish all the time. And you're going to have to know, it's not enough to know the corrective exercises. You got to know, like, how do you link them together? How many repetitions do you do? Which exercise for which kid? What's going to work here? What's going to work there? It's going to take you guys some time to develop that knowledge. Anyway, Brian, my man, Brian Peterson is on the program. Welcome back, amigo. Let me see what you wrote here. You've got a bunch of questions and comments. Or maybe just one here. Do you get caught up in the weight distribution at the power position? I've heard Macy say 60-40 with more weight on the back foot. That way, it's more of a push serve. Yeah. I do spend a little time on that. I think that's a good way to go. Exactly how you described it, to be honest. And, Macy, what can I say? You guys know that I'm a big Macy fan. Some people don't like Rick very much, but, I think he's got it all right on the serve. I've been on his court. I've been down his academy shadowing him, back in the day. And I always study Rick's videos and all of the anything that he publishes, any lessons that he does that happen to come online. I'm a big fan, and I think he's really, really amazing with children, type of kids that I work with. A lot of young kids. He's got a great way of engaging children. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's a great communicator. And I happen to think he is very good with technique, especially in his collaboration with Brian Gordon over the years. The two of them together are kind of a technical powerhouse. I know Brian has now moved on. I think he's also in Miami with a new sort of boutique academy or a technical training center. But anyway, they split up. There was a divorce. I guess something happened. But, Rick is amazing. He's very good with technique. I got to tell you, he's known as one of the best technicians in the world, Macy, and I think he's really good. When I went down to study with him, I spent a week with him, and I could tell you some great stories. I won't go into it, but one of my memories was that I said, this guy is known for being the best technician in the world, and he works a lot on the serve, especially the serve. He's very proud of that, working on the serve. And I said, this guy, I think Gilad is better. I think Gilad is better at analyzing and fixing the serve. I see better corrective exercises and that will work faster. That was my impression at the time. whether you agree with me or not, whether you choose to believe me or not. But that was kind of my impression at the time, and I said, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I could fix this kid's serve even better than what Rick's doing. That was my thought at the time. It's like a young guy, like I have no business thinking that, but I remember those types of thoughts. Like, I see what he's doing. It's not bad, but I've seen Gilad do it better, and I think I could probably fix that kid's serve better. And that was, 15. That was a long time ago. I haven't seen Rick in a while. But anyway, it's interesting memory. You mentioned Macy. The 60-40 is not a hard and fast rule. Some players jump a little more off the front. Some players use a little more of the back. But I think it's a good rule of thumb. And Andy Brandy's big. Andy Brandy's another excellent coach whom I studied with. Studied with him down in Boca, the USTA. He's great. He's amazing. Andy Brandy also, he believes the same, 60-40. I can think of that's a good rule of thumb. No problem with that. But don't spend. It is an important building block, because if you have a kid just jumping off the front leg, it's a problem, and you probably should correct it. Because if you're working on the big gross motor skill of a young kid, I'm trying to think what I would do. I would definitely correct it, because it's not something I would let slide, because I want them to learn how to jump properly. And to learn how to jump properly is accessing the energy of the back leg, which drives up the back hip. Getting that force, getting a good ground reaction force, GRF, from the back leg, the loading in the back leg. So that is something that I do spend time on with children. Absolutely. Great question. And I think that's part of teaching the leg how to jump well for a serve. All right, you guys getting this? Is this interesting or what? You think I'm crazy over here? Up in the mountains of Vermont, some crazy guy says he can teach the serve? Well, you have to come and visit. Let me know what you think. So, should I recap that really? I don't even remember all the big ticket items. Like I said, I didn't take notes for this, guys. This is all stuff. You got the power position. Go through a few of them. That's big. That includes the tossing movement. The leg work, including the footwork post landing. So you got the leg work, the loading, like Brian was saying, getting good distribution in the weight with the legs. The exploding, that's the jump. Teaching a kid how to jump properly. A lot of kids jump kind of funny. Like they might lift their knees up like they're doing a bunny hop or something. Teach them how to jump well. And then part of that is landing with good balance and stability. And with a kickback, with an arabesque. I spend a lot of time on the splitting of the legs. Most kids jump and land really sloppily. So that is like those are sort of my beginning building blocks. And many players will come in for remedial work. They don't have that, and we got to go and we have to get that, regardless of what age they are. You got to have those building blocks. You have, what else? 1, 2, landing. See, those are the main points. Don't get too caught up with grip, wrist. Of course, eventually you're going to get a good continental grip. You start working on spin serve. Oh, I wanted to share with you guys just sort of a little philosophy, meta philosophy, overarching beyond the basic philosophy, beyond technique. When do you develop a kick serve? When do you develop a slice? Do you develop those serves at all? Yes, you need to develop all of the serves in tennis. Slice, top spin, flat, This very common coaching question. Parents ask me this question a lot. Some really famous coaches start with flat. You get that flat serve going for a young kid. And then later on, they add in a slice or a topspin. Some coaches start with a slice because it's more natural, quote unquote. It's more of a natural throwing motion. It's easier to learn. I've started kids with a topspin before. Not a huge kick, but just a brushing motion. Depends. I've gone through different iterations of this philosophy. I used to think, you got to start the kids brushing more, get the little, like, the upward topspin action going. I used to like to do that with all the young kids, but I became more flexible over the years. Sometimes we'll do the flat, sometimes we'll do slice. I think you got to go with the way the kid presents in front of you, the player. Some players may have more success with a particular serve when they're young, and you can kind of be flexible. You don't have to be rigid and say, oh, it's got to be kick first, or it's got to be flat first. You can also work on a mix. If you have a very talented kid, you can do more of a mix. If the kid is not that talented, motorically gifted, be very careful with mixing too many serve styles, skills at once. I definitely think with less gifted kids, it's better to pick one and develop more of a mastery before moving on to another. But I have this idea that between the first and the second serve, by the time a kid is 10, 11, 12, depending on how early they started, depending on how elite they are at that age. I deal with I coach some kids who are very elite. Winning a little mo at 10 is, you're one of the best players in the country. You get a kid like that, they have to have a serve. I really believe this is a one serve philosophy. They have to have one serve that they can pretty much get in every time. I don't care if it's raining, the sun's in their eye, it's a tornado coming through. They got one serve that they can get in, and they can pretty much play an entire match with one serve. How many of your students can do that? How many of your players can do that? Well, the best kids in the country can do that. They have a motion that's so refined and automatic that they can put that one serve in almost every time. And then occasionally, even for the best kids in the country, they're human, they will miss that serve, and it's time for the second delivery. And my approach is, I like the second delivery to be different than the first. So I don't like to see a top kid in the country, young kid, who's popping in the same serve. That's just me. But I know other great developers who they don't agree with that at all. And I respect that. They just want to get that one serve, one delivery. For me, it's like one and one. You got to have the one serve that almost goes in every time. But you also have to have the other one that is differentiated. And usually for me, I teach a topspin. It's not going to be a big kick for a little kid, but it is going to be a topspin. That means it has a rainbow shape. It goes up high. I mean, we can do another show on the kick serve. I love talking kick serve, guys. That's one of my number one areas of specialty here, because I teach thousands of over the years, hundreds and thousands of beautiful kick serve. That's one of my favorite shots to teach. But with little kids, it's not going to be a big kick. It's not going to be Roger's kick or Novak. And with older players, adults who come to train with me, usually not going to be a big kick either. Going to be more of a top spin. Could be a fast top spin. Depends on the different varieties of top spin. But essentially, what I'm saying is, if you wanted a little elite kid, and you start them at 5, 6, or 7 or whatever, you gotta get a serve. You gotta build something that goes in 99.999. It has to be money in the bank. And I give you flexibility. Can be a slice, can be a flat, can be a kick. So you can work on the other ones, but you got to have that one, the one that always goes in. Because you can't win big tournaments without that. You have to have a serve that holds up under pressure. And once you have that one serve, it gives the player a lot of confidence. So many young children that I meet, that I see, they come to the academy, come to camp, or whatever, they are very, very anxious. They have a lot of anxiety on the tennis court. And I really believe it's because they haven't developed that one serve, that one delivery that they can trust. They're a mess. It's chaos. And there's too much variation. They haven't done enough good, deep repetition. You know, as they say, the key to technical learning is deep, focus, engaged repetition. They haven't done enough of that repetition to develop that one solid delivery that will almost always go in. I mean it, whether it's windy or sunny or whatever. Whether, you know, the other player's a jerk, the other player's parent is swearing at you, or God knows what's happening at junior tournaments right now. You know, that player has to have that money serve. And when they're young, it's just one. They're not like a little Roger with 3 serves that are money. Eventually, as they get older, the goal is to have 2 serves that are that reliable, and then a third serve, three total serves. Slice, a kick, and a flat or a power serve. Basically 3. There's a lot of different variations of those 3. But so I think when their kids are young, you've got to develop that one. And I just see a lot of kids who they're double faulting a lot. They're missing a lot of first serves. They are very, very chaotic. They don't have control of their serve. And that, I think, is the key for a young kid, is getting that control. And if you work on it to serve that way, this is an overarching philosophy, you will have players who have less anxiety. Young, and especially for young kids. Unfortunately, once you develop a lot of anxiety with your serve, that can compound and become a psychological scar. Seriously, that can become a trauma that you can carry with you your entire tennis career. You can carry that with you all the way into your teenage years and adulthood. That can really affect you psychologically. So it's really, really important to get good technical coaching when you're young, and to develop that solid serve with enough deep repetition so that it's automatic. And then you start to build in the variety later. You keep that one really good serve. That's going to win you a national championship. But then in practice, you start building out your kick or your slice. Or that one serve could be just you roll in a topspin serve every time, and then you start developing your first power. You know, you can do it in a number of different iterations, number of different ways. Don't feel it has to be just one way, but you got to have one. That's my philosophy of one serve. And I don't know if I ever got my serve. You know, I played at a pretty high level. You know, lower level, like futures level, but there are times where I felt that I basically could have played with one serve. And those were my best matches. Like my best memories of serving is when I felt that I could almost make my first serve in at will, or if I chose to kick it, it almost always went in. And if I missed the first serve by chance, I knew there was no chance I was going to miss that kick serve. It was just spot on. And I didn't always feel that way, but I imagine that's what that's what the real legends of the game feel like when they're hot, you know, when they're serving. They feel that they can basically play with one serve. And it gives you a tremendous confidence, because if you happen to miss it by an inch or two, no problem. You have that second one that you put in. But that's sort of what I mean by developing this overarching philosophy of one serve. And I think it starts as a young kid getting that one serve right with really good technique and good repetition, good coaching, good technical coaching. And then that sort of lays a good foundation, and even a good psychological foundation for the years that come. So that's kind of the way I see it. Brian had a quick question. Do you think WTA players should prioritize the serve more? And that's an easy answer. Absolutely. And I think they are. I think the WTA players who are succeeding, more and more, you're seeing bigger servers, you're seeing faster servers, and you're seeing women who serve more like the men and who have technique that mimics the men more. The days of, I don't want to, name names, but the days of just popping in the serve and ripping ground strokes on the WTA. Maybe you can guess whose serve I'm thinking of. Really terrible serve on the WTA tour, and she made top 10. I'm not gonna name names, but doesn't matter. Those days, I think, are numbered, and that's not the future. I always say the future of the women's game is more like the men, and that means big, dominating serving. So the women's game is typically return-oriented, and I think the women will always have good returns, but I think if you have a young girl and you want them to be, especially if they have some height, if they have some power in their body, if they're explosive, you want to be developing that serve very similar to what the men do. And I think that's the future of the women's game. All right, amigos, it has been my pleasure. I hope to see you guys on the next program. We should be doing some cool stuff coming up. Probably be a couple weeks before we get the next show going. I am busy teaching. I have a full week of coaching ahead. I have players coming into the academy here in Manchester. I want to invite all of you to come visit me. Maybe you want to come develop a world-class serve. Come and do that. If you come for a week and I see you every day, we can make substantial improvement in your serve or any other area of your game, especially technical area. I love that. I love the hardware. Love working on the hardware. Hardware technician. But I wanted to say right now, the academy, we are looking for players and especially families to move here and train with me full time. It's exciting for me to offer that. It's the first time that I've been here in Manchester, Vermont, year round. So I'm looking for the first few families to get this small boutique program going full time. Right now I have a lot of players visiting short time, which is fine. But to me, the future of this program here could be one of you listening or watching. And I think the future of this program is family. It is families who are living here and training with me every day. And I don't want the program to be big. I'm talking about maybe a small group of 6 to 8 players. Because this academy during the winter, we don't take your kid and shoo you away. We want the parents here. And I think that's very unique. I don't believe in kicking the parents out. I work with many parents who are involved with their kids' coaching. And those are the type of parents that I want here. So it's a very different type of academy, quote unquote, where I want the parents on site all the time. I want the parents living here. I want the kid to be with their family. I don't want to take your player away from you, and I don't want you to leave your child with me. We do that in the summer camp, so they can get that experience in the summer camp. But the year-round program here, I am looking for a parent or the family to come here and to train with me full-time, and the parent to be very involved with their child's development. And those are the families that I like to work with the most. Those are the families that I've had the most success with over the years. And usually, in my experience, not always, there are exceptions, but usually those are the kids who will become champions, the ones who have a mom or a dad who are really, really heavily involved in their development, passionate and engaged, and they care so much. And that's really the type of player, the type of situation that I'm looking for here, for players and families to come here on a year-round basis. So if you're one of those people, if you're one of those parents or one of those kids, please consider that. You can come for a short-term trial, and you can see if you like it, if you like working with me, and then we can make a plan from there. And this also applies to international players. I have a number of international families reaching out to me currently. International, the issue is always the visa. So we will work with any international family that really wants to be here and train with me. We will work to help you secure the visa that you need to be able to live here with your family. So let me know if that interests you. I know that right now with COVID, it's a little difficult to get this part of my program going. I know it will take off soon, but I wanted to let everyone know that that is the future that I see here. And if you happen to be catching this show, or if you know someone who's interested in that kind of arrangement, please get in touch with me. All right, guys, I will see you on the next program. It was a great show. Keep working on your serve. Let me know if you have any technical questions. And I will see you guys soon on the next program. Adios, amigos.